For nearly a century, Mar-a-Lago has stood as one of the most extravagant estates in America, a mansion designed to rival the palaces of Europe, nestled in the heart of Palm Beach, Florida. Built during an era of unparalleled wealth and ambition, this grand estate was the vision of one of the richest women in the world, a woman whose legacy shaped more than just high society. Even so, Mar-a-Lago's history is far more than gilded ballrooms and oceanfront luxury. In fact, at one point, it was on the brink of being forgotten as the subject of legal disputes and near demolition, before a controversial figure, who we all know today, intervened and altered its destiny. Today, it remains one of the most talked about properties in America, carrying a story that spans decades of opulence, struggle, and reinvention. So, how did Mar-a-Lago rise to prominence? What challenges threaten its very existence? And how did it transform from a private retreat into a place of political and cultural significance? Stay tuned to find out, as today we uncover the history of Mar-a-Lago. I'm your host, Ryan Socash, and you're watching It's History. Let's journey back to the very beginning, before Florida became a haven for tourists and retirees, and before opulent estates adorned its coastlines. Back then, Florida was a land of ultimate wilderness, indigenous tribes, and later, visionary industrialists who finally realized its true potential. Florida's story begins over 12,000 years ago, when the first Native Americans migrated into the region following the Ice Age. These early inhabitants were hunter-gatherers, relying on the land for survival. Over time, various native tribes settled throughout Florida, living off the rich coastal waters and constructing massive shell mounds, some of which still remain today as evidence of their civilization. Then, the arrival of European explorers in the 16th century marked a significant turning point. Spanish and French explorers claimed the land, leading to profound changes for the indigenous populations. Changes such as the introduction of new diseases and conflicts, resulting in a dramatic decline in native populations. Over the next 3 centuries, Florida changed hands between Spain, Britain, and eventually the US in 1821, though Florida remained largely undeveloped by the late 19th century, but that was all about to change. Enter Henry Flagler, an oil tycoon and Standard Oil co-founder who envisioned Florida as a luxury destination. Flagler embarked on an ambitious project to extend the Florida East Coast Railway southwards, facilitating access to the state's pristine locations. His vision included the construction of grand hotels, such as the Royal Poinciana and the Breakers in Palm Beach, both of which became the epitome of luxury and attracted the American elites. Flagler's marketing strategies were instrumental in promoting Florida as the ultimate winter retreat. He targeted affluent individuals in cities like New York and Chicago. Advertisements showcased the state's sun-drenched beaches, exquisite hotels, and the allure of an American Riviera, enticing the wealthy to escape harsh northern winters. The success of these campaigns led to an influx of notable figures to Palm Beach. Industrialists, socialites, and celebrities flocked to the area, seeking leisure and prestige. The likes of John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan were among those who frequented Flagler's establishments, cementing Palm Beach's status as a playground for the rich. With improved transportation and an influx of wealthy seasonal residents, the land around Palm Beach became some of the most valuable real estate in the country. And as you might imagine, this region flourished through the Roaring '20s. It was in this era that one of Palm Beach's most opulent estates was conceived, a mansion unlike any other, built by one of the wealthiest women in the world. This was the beginning of Mar-a-Lago, an estate designed not just as a home, but as a statement of power, luxury, and vision. Marjorie Merriweather Post was no ordinary heiress. Born in 1887, she was the only child of C.W. Post, founder of Postum Cereal, or Post, which would later evolve into General Foods Corporation. Her father's early death in 1914 left her in control of the family empire at just 27 years old, making her one of the wealthiest women in the world. Unlike many socialites of her time, Post was a shrewd businesswoman, philanthropist, and avid art collector. By the early 20th century, Post had already developed a love for Palm Beach, a destination that had become the winter playground of America's elite. She first visited the area in 1909 and was captivated by its warm climate and exclusive social scene. However, as her influence in high society grew, so did her vision for an estate surpassing all others in grandeur and luxury. Post envisioned a Mediterranean-style palace that would blend Spanish, Venetian, and Portuguese influences into a single masterpiece. She meticulously searched for the perfect plot of land, eventually selecting 17 acres of prime waterfront property that stretched all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to Lake Worth. Mar-a-Lago, meaning sea to lake in Spanish, was chosen to reflect its unique location. Construction began in 1923, with architect Marion Sims Wyeth leading in design and Joseph Urban, an Austrian-born theatrical set designer, overseeing the elaborate interiors. The team spared no expense in sourcing exotic materials from around the world, and they went to great lengths. For example, 3 boatloads of Doria's stone were shipped in from Italy. This stone was chosen for its ability to age beautifully and adaptability for intricate carvings. Then we have the 36,000 Spanish tiles that adorned the estate and had been collected by Post from estates and churches dating all the way back to the 15th century. The estate's stucco walls were enriched with hand-carved reliefs, while the roof tiles, imported from Cuba, ranged in hues from deep black to sun-washed coral. The grand 75-foot tower provided sweeping views of Palm Beach and was designed to be both an architectural centerpiece and a navigational landmark for passing ships. Now, building an estate of this scale in Florida's harsh coastal environment presented significant challenges. Post insisted that the foundation be anchored directly into the coral reef beneath the estate, ensuring stability against hurricanes and tropical storms. The structure was reinforced with concrete and steel, making it one of the most resilient mansions of its era. Beyond its structural integrity, Mar-a-Lago was a marvel of modern luxury. Yet, it was also practical. Post incorporated a secret tunnel beneath South Ocean Boulevard, leading directly to the beach. Then we have the landscaping, which was originally designed by Lewis and Valentine and featured semi-tropical plants specifically chosen to thrive in Florida's climate. Hence, when Mar-a-Lago officially opened in 1927, it was unlike anything Palm Beach had seen. The estate featured 58 bedrooms, 33 bathrooms, grand dining halls, opulent ballrooms, and lavish saloons, all adorned with gold-plated fixtures, imported marble, and silk needlework panels from Venetian palaces. So I think it's safe to say that Marjorie Post wasn't just building a home, but establishing her legacy. Mar-a-Lago became the epicenter of high society, hosting royals, diplomats, and business magnates. Guests were treated to a full day's worth of activities, from formal dinners to private movie screenings and, at times, even circus performances. And you have to remember that Post saw herself as more than just a hostess. She was a philanthropist who believed in using her wealth to benefit others. She ensured that charity events, concerts, and fundraisers were also held at Mar-a-Lago, occasionally opening the estate's doors to common people or the underprivileged, giving them a taste of grandeur and a world that would be difficult to imagine for most of us. Yet, even as Mar-a-Lago dazzled the elite, questions loomed over its extravagant upkeep and role in a changing world. Palm Beach was evolving, and Mar-a-Lago, this grand gilded mansion, would not remain untouched by controversy, power struggles, and the shifting tides of American society. By the late 1920s, Palm Beach was at its height of wealth and prestige, with Mar-a-Lago standing out as one of the most extravagant mansions of the time. Even so, as Post's estate became the epicenter of high society, both Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago would face shifts that would test their endurance. From the moment it opened its doors in 1927, Mar-a-Lago was an exclusive retreat for the world's elite. But while the estate remained a hub of luxury, Palm Beach itself was changing. The Great Depression in the 1930s led to economic decline across the country, and even Palm Beach was not immune. Many grand estates from Florida's land boom were abandoned and even demolished, left behind as victims of this economic downturn. Yet Mar-a-Lago endured. a testament to Post's careful financial management. Then, in 1935, Post's personal life shifted when she divorced E.F. Hutton and soon remarried Joseph E. Davies, a Washington lawyer, which was later appointed U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union. Considering her new personal situation and her growing international interest, Post spent much of the late 1930s and early 1940s abroad, and Mar-a-Lago was left mainly vacant for 5 seasons. During World War II, the estate even served as a training center for returning servicemen, perhaps marking a highlight of one of its few periods of inactivity. After the war, Post returned to Palm Beach, and Mar-a-Lago resumed its position as a social powerhouse. In 1957, she established the International Red Cross Gala, an event that would become an annual tradition. By 1961, she expanded the estate further, with a dance pavilion, allowing for even grander celebrations. However, like I said before, Palm Beach was changing and continued to evolve. The town, once exclusive to the ultra-wealthy, faced increasing development, and social taste began shifting away from the excesses of the 1920s. And very much in the same way that New York City demolished many of its most amazing architecture in the 60s, Palm Beach followed suit, outright razing many of the grand estates and mansions that defined the town for so many decades. Yet Mar-a-Lago somehow remained untouched, protected by Post-influence perhaps, and her deep attachment to the home. By the 1960s, the golden age of Palm Beach society was fading. Many of the greatest estates had disappeared, yet Mar-a-Lago stood defiant, its legacy still intact. Though, as time pressed forward, so did the realities of maintaining such an enormous estate. In her later years, Post's health began to decline, suffering from osteoporosis as well as other various age-related ailments, yet she did remain active in her philanthropy efforts. Even as she grew frail, she continued to host events at Mar-a-Lago, ensuring that its role as a cultural and charitable hub remained intact. This was obviously her life's work and top priority, though Post did own several other significant estates, including Hillwood in Washington, D.C., as well as Camp Topridge, which was a mountain retreat. Each of these estates was meticulously curated to reflect her taste for luxury and art, but Mar-a-Lago was her most beloved creation. Anyhow, all good things must come to an end, and she passed away on September the 12th, 1973, at the age of 86 in her Hillwood estate in Washington, D.C. She was buried at Rock Creek Cemetery, with her legacy as America's greatest businesswoman and philanthropist firmly established. Now, not long after she was laid to rest, some pretty shocking news emerged about a decision she had left in her will. You see, she left Mar-a-Lago to the United States government, envisioning it as a winter White House for future presidents and foreign dignitaries. The government initially accepted the gift, but the estate's fate was far from secure. By the late 1970s, the federal government found that maintaining Mar-a-Lago was a financial burden. The estate's enormous upkeep and security challenges made it difficult to justify as a government retreat. President Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter both declined to use it with those factors in mind, leading to uncertainty about its future. Mar-a-Lago had survived the Great Depression, World War II, and shifting social tides, but its greatest challenge was yet to come, with the federal government questioning whether it could afford to maintain such a lavish estate. The fate of Mar-a-Lago hung in the balance. When the federal government officially returned Mar-a-Lago to the Post Foundation in 1981, the estate entered one of the most uncertain periods in its history. Once the grand centerpiece of Palm Beach's high society, the mansion now faced neglect, financial uncertainty, and the looming threat of demolition. Despite being designated a National Historic Landmark in 1980, the property quickly became more of a burden than an asset to those around it. The Post family, anticipating a sale, chose not to maintain the estate, and as a result, the once glorious halls of Mar-a-Lago fell into a bizarre state of disrepair. A downward spiral set in. The estate was at serious risk, with no buyer stepping forward at the $20 million asking price. Remember, by the early 1980s, the cost of maintaining such a massive property with 58 bedrooms, 33 bathrooms, and sprawling oceanfront land was astronomical, making it unattractive for even the wealthiest investors. Without its original owner, Mar-a-Lago was no longer a bustling social hub, but a shadow of its former self. The grand estate that once hosted presidents and dignitaries was a fading relic. Its fate was unknown. Mar-a-Lago's predicament was not unique. Across Palm Beach, many grand estates from the Gilded Age were either being torn down or converted into commercial properties. The extravagant homes of the 1920s were becoming increasingly impractical as property taxes, security costs, and maintenance expenses continued to soar. By 1983, the Post Foundation considered demolishing Mar-a-Lago to make way for a smaller, more manageable property. However, the estate's historic designation complicated those plans, and efforts to repurpose it stalled. At this point, Mar-a-Lago became the subject of multiple failed purchase attempts, where a series of buyers expressed interest, but negotiations collapsed due to the sheer cost of upkeep and local zoning restrictions. But then, in 1985, a real estate mogul named Donald Trump made his move. Initially, Trump offered $50 million, but the offer was rejected. Instead of backing down, he executed a bold business maneuver. He purchased the land between Mar-a-Lago and the ocean from Jack C. Massey, the former owner of KFC, for $2 million. Trump then announced plans to build a massive home, a home that would block Mar-a-Lago's beach views, effectively driving down competing interests in the estate. With no other buyers left in the running, Trump was able to negotiate a significantly lower price. In 1985, he purchased Mar-a-Lago for $7 million, a fraction of its initial $20 million asking price. Mar-a-Lago had been saved from demolition, but what came next was far from certain. The historic estate, once a grand playground for high society, was now in the hands of a man who had big ambitions and even bigger plans. When Donald Trump purchased Mar-a-Lago in 1985, he wasn't just acquiring a mansion. He was stepping into the history of one of Palm Beach's most legendary estates. And the timing was perfect, as Mar-a-Lago had faced an uncertain fate for decades, sitting in limbo after the federal government returned it to the Post Foundation. Under Trump's ownership, it was about to enter a new era, filled with ambition, reinvention, and controversy. Over the next decade, Trump poured money into renovating and restoring the estate, recognizing its potential beyond just a private residence. He converted it into an exclusive private club in 1994. The club gave membership access to luxury ballrooms, a private beach, tennis courts, a waterfront pool, and a massive 20,000 square foot ballroom. The exclusivity of this club made it a prestigious destination for celebrities, business moguls, and, once again, socialites, with the initiation fee eventually reaching all the way up to $200,000. And as the stakes rose, so did Trump's battles with the Palm Beach elite. In 1997, he filed a lawsuit against the town, claiming local officials had financial stakes in competing clubs and were unfairly restricting him from lifting regulations on membership limits, media access, and tax exemptions. The legal battle heightened tensions between Trump's aggressive business style and Palm Beach's old money social order. In 2006, another legal fight erupted over a massive American flag Trump installed on the property. Basically, the town's ordinance restricted flagpoles to 42 feet, when Trump's flag stood at 70 feet, sparking a dispute over zoning laws. Rather than comply, Trump sued the town for $25 million, claiming they were violating his First Amendment rights. The case was eventually settled, allowing the flag to remain after Trump slightly lowered the pole and agreed to donate $100,000 to a veterans charity. By the early 2000s, Mar-a-Lago was no longer just a Palm Beach retreat. It had once again become a power hub, attracting celebrities, politicians, and business elite. Yet, its biggest transformation was still to come. Trump's first presidency elevated Mar-a-Lago's status even further. After his 2016 election, the estate became known as the Winter White House. Ironically, this is what Post had originally intended, and it served as a backdrop for diplomatic meetings and political events. Such was the case in 2017, when the Japanese Prime Minister visited as one of Trump's first major international summits. Just 2 months later, he found himself in attendance with the President of China, where the two leaders discussed trade relations and global security over a formal dinner. Though, as perhaps you've noticed, not everyone was a fan of this type of arrangement. You see, the club's open membership structure and frequent high-profile guest list made it an unconventional venue for political affairs, and there were further bumps along the road. For example, in 2019, a Chinese woman was arrested for attempting to enter Mar-a-Lago with multiple electronic devices, raising suspicion about espionage risks. Then, in 2022, the estate was thrust into the national spotlight again when the FBI executed a search warrant to investigate the handling of classified government documents. This event sparked intense political debates, reinforcing Mar-a-Lago's role as a symbol of both power and controversy. Yet, despite legal battles and media scrutiny, Mar-a-Lago continues to operate as one of America's most exclusive private clubs. Membership grants access to gourmet dinners, a luxury spa, a championship-level croquet court, and exclusive social events. Hence, Mar-a-Lago remains a gathering place for political figures, foreign dignitaries, and influential business leaders, maintaining its status and reputation as the center of wealth and influence in the state of Florida. And that's the story of Mar-a-Lago, one of the most unusual estates in American history. I'd like to thank you all for watching this episode. I really hope that you'll consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us grow. Otherwise, until next time, I'm Ryan Socash, signing off.